You're listening to Honey and Hustle, a video podcast that inspires the dreamers, creators, and hustlers to make a business from their passions. I'm Angela Hollowell, and I'm a visual storyteller based in Durham, North Carolina. I sit down with creative entrepreneurs, nonprofit founders, and small business owners as they share their stories, the lessons they've learned throughout their careers, and how they've worked to make a positive impact. Hey everyone, we are filming season 3 of the Honey and Hustle podcast live at the Durham Bottling Co. right in downtown Durham. We're about to get into a great conversation, but before we do that, I'd really appreciate it if you take a moment to share this episode with someone who you think might get some value from it. Feel free to tag me on the podcast on social media, and I'll be sure to put those links on the video and in the description below. If you're listening to the show, please consider leaving us a review on Podchaser, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. It helps others find the show and lets me know how I'm doing at this video podcast thing. If you'd like to support the show, be sure to check out our affiliate links, shop our merch, and subscribe to the Honey Pot newsletter and this YouTube channel, all at the links in the description. Without further ado, let's get into it. So thank you so much for joining me here today at the Durham Bottling Co. to talk about everything Aspiring Co. has going on, everything you have going on as a creator, as an entrepreneur. And I just want to say I feel very honored to have you on the mic this time because you are typically the one asking all the questions. So now you get to be in the hot seat.
Yeah, I guess that is what this is. Yeah, I am usually the one that's asking people questions and being like, oh, tell me more about that. Yeah. And it's weird to be on the other side of that.
Okay, well, get used to feeling weird because we're going to get even weirder.
It's fine.
So you have been interviewing people for a long time, but that's not the basis of Aspiring Co. So Aspiring Co. is your design company, right?
That's a great question. So, well, my vision was for Aspiring Co. to just be the media stuff, and then for my design stuff to be separate, but no one makes that connection. So it just always ends up under Aspiring Co. To the point where I actually talked to an accountant. I was like, hey, so I'm gonna have to redo some stuff. So I had this like vision for. I thought about getting another LLC and making that one Dream Creative Studio, and then having Aspiring Co. as a DBA under that. Okay. So that way everything would just kind of belong to that company. But she was like, hey, hold your horses. And I was like, all right, well, that's fine. I'll just sit my ass down somewhere. Yeah, so that's in my mind, it was supposed to be separate, but no one sees it that way, so it's all together. Okay. Well, can you tell me, like, since that was your initial, like, idea for Aspiring Co. and having that separation, like, how did that start? Like, when did you start Aspiring Co. and how did it get to where it is now, where you have a book and you have all these amazing clients and you're doing all these amazing design work and all the great things? Okay. So in 2013-ish, I was graduating from college. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Like, no clue what creative careers look like. I went to college thinking I was going to be a pharmacist. Mm-hmm. I'm very far from that at this point. So I honestly had no idea what careers look like for people that were not like in like an office or not like doing like pharmacy stuff. So I really just wanted to like talk to people and just like see, and specifically women, and I wanted to be a place that didn't have any like celebrity stuff. I wanted to just be like really focused on just like regular people that you could like see yourself in. Mm-hmm. So that was the vision, and I had a co-founder at the time, which I had the idea. I went to this girl. I was like, hey, she was like in my design classes in college. I was like, hey, I would love to get you. I know that you blog, so I would like to have you as like a contributor for this project. She was like, all right, cool. So then we put everything aside, graduate. I started my first job, which was a train wreck. And then she had reached back out to me. She was like, hey, let's do this thing, but as co-founders. And I was like, all right, cool. Like there's nothing here, so we're starting from scratch. So we had started everything together. We had worked probably for like 6 months leading up to like when we launched, which was January 1st, 2014. We made it as a team maybe a good 2 months. Okay. And then things went awry. I think a lot of people that start with co-founders, you'll hear that like it doesn't always work out, and it's due to all kinds of different reasons. We just were not on the same page at all.
Yeah.
So the whole time, so it was called Speaking of Everything at that point, and so I was just interviewing people. It was like one a month, and just putting it up, and we had like other content that we were it was like a whole little magazine. Mm-hmm. But as we separated, I was like, I don't have the bandwidth for all of this. And also it was like our friends that were like writing for us. And so when I lost her, I lost like all of her little friends too. Mm-hmm. So it was just like, okay, this is not ideal. So let's figure out how we can make this like work. So that was like 2014. So I just kept going because I felt like I was out to prove something at that point, that, hey, I don't need you and we'll stay friends. I can do this by myself.
No shade at all.
I mean, that's the nice version of how I actually feel on the inside. So yeah, I was like, all right, I can do this by myself. So I was just like committed to just like putting on content regularly. Mm-hmm. And I kept finding like these really cool people to interview, which at this point, Instagram was like a newish thing, you know? So like it was nowhere near what it is now, where people are just like on there flexing all day. But like before, it was just like people were taking pictures of like their food and like, look at my outfit. It wasn't like a whole. So anyway, I didn't know what people like were doing for like careers. So I was finding them on Instagram mostly, and then just like sliding the DMs or finding their email address and then contacting them and being like, hey, I would love to talk to you about this. What you're doing is really cool. Find them. We meet, whatever, do the interview, and then I would take the time to like edit it and then put it back out. So then in 2000 maybe like 17 or 18, one of those, I was like, all right, so I'm shifting gears because I've just been doing this work without really even thinking about it. I've just been like in like, just like get it out there mode. Mm-hmm. And so I had a minute and I was like, okay, this doesn't really feel like what I wanted it to be anymore. Like at this point, I'm just doing this to prove something to someone that I don't even care about now. So let's stop. So I took a little break and I was like, all right, Aspiring Co. That's what it's going to be, which was an idea that I had back when I was in college. I wanted to make t-shirts that just said like Aspiring and then like a blank on it, thinking that it would help at like networking events for people to kind of like see like literally what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like a vision I had, and I didn't have anything else but just like that concept. So I kept that and I was like, all right, Aspiring Co, we're just gonna go with that. So the first thing I rolled out was a mug that was it's Aspiring with a blank line. So some people have like written their thing on it on there. So yeah, we kind of like rebranded to Aspiring Co. And at that point I was doing a ton of design work. Like I was working full time still. So yeah, this is 2017. I was working full-time still. I quit my job in 2018. So I'm just like putting out content. And also right when I left my job is like things just started coming out of nowhere. Like all these opportunities, which looking back, I'm like, at the time that was like the right move. Now I'm not so. If we're being honest, I do think sometimes like, should I have quit my job? You know, like, I probably could have lasted a little bit longer. I mean, you just know with everything, there's a trade-off. So it's just like, is it worth what I'm like where I am now? Which obviously, you know, if I didn't do it this way, I'd always be wondering like, oh, I should have quit my job, you know? So, so anyway, in 2018, I was able to go to like this United States State of Women event. Michelle Obama was like the keynote. I applied randomly for a press pass, which I did not think was going to be approved. I was in my bed at like 3:00 in the morning because insomnia and anxiety. So I just like woke up and I was like, look at this. Let me see. I started just like clicking on links and I do that often sometimes. I just end up in like a rabbit hole. So I found the press contact. So I emailed her. The email has typos in it and everything because it was so early. I just sent it. I again did not think anyone was going to read it or anything. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, oh, wow, that was really easy. So after that, it was me and two friends. We went to LA and like we covered the event, which honestly I feel like we just attended the event. I don't feel like we got any like actual press like privileges. But we were there. It was really fun. And then I was like, okay, this is a life I can see for myself. And then came back home. I think right after that I went to Social Media Week in New York. So I was just like, okay, spreading the word about Aspiring Code, just telling anyone that would listen to me. I think I also went to BYOB brand. BYOB is called like Build Your Own Brand, and then Live, I think that's like their handle, like BYOB Live. So I went to their first event, which was in DC, and again I took some friends and they helped me cover it for media, and that was really, really fun. I made a lot of connections, and I feel like all of these things I like made connections, but I was like, okay, I don't really know what I'm going to do with any of this stuff now. So yeah, that was 2018. Yes, 2018, and then it's very strange because then I did Forbes in 2019. Okay. So it's like, wow. In my mind, it seems like lifetimes apart. You know, it was literally the next year. So again, on a whim, I just applied for something. I had a friend that's from the area actually. She was like, oh, I'm gonna be an exhibitor at Forbes 30 Under 30 Summit. And I was like, all right, cool. She's like, oh, so I get like extra tickets. So I'm selling tickets. So like if you pay me like $500, you can come with me. And I was like, cool. Then I was like, you know what? If she can exhibit, why don't I try that same thing? Yeah. So I applied and they called me and I had an attitude because you're going to be like, this girl is insane. Stay far away. So yeah, I had picked up because I thought it was Rutgers, because online you see like these little course catalogs and you're like, oh, I would like to just see what they're teaching the kids. So I put my information in. And they were calling me, they were like harassing me. I had to block all the numbers. So it was always like a New Brunswick area code. So I was just like blocking the numbers. So the guy from Forbes calls, I think I sent him straight to voicemail because I was like, I don't have time for these people. And then I played the voicemail and I was like, holy shit, like this is a thing. Yeah. So I remember I was at my parents' house. I had to like run upstairs into the bedroom, call him back because everyone was like being loud, and I was like, I just need a moment. So he was like, yeah, well, next thing is you're gonna have to pay like, I think it was like $1,500 to like exhibit. And I was like, all right, I don't have that. I'm gonna figure it out though. So I just was like, all right, challenge accepted. So I immediately went into like fundraising mode, which I don't know. I honestly don't know how I'm sitting here right now. Like, I mean, it was a lot going on. And then I had like some health stuff come up like in 2014 and then again in 2019. So that was really something that like kind of set me. I felt like every time I was trying to take a step forward, God would be like, hey girl, back, sit down, relax, you're doing too much. So yeah, I ended up now we're at Aspiring Code. That was a very long answer to your question as to how do we get here. It's okay. And then the book. So yeah, that was something that I have a friend, Sheila from the Bulls of Durham. Yeah. So she was trying to get someone else to let her do like a rerun of their book. And I was like, girl, if you're just looking for books to print, I got you. Mm-hmm. And she was like, Danae, why have you been sitting on this? I was like, because the way that my life has just worked so far is I just put things vaguely out into the universe, and then sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Mm-hmm. So I knew at some point I would get around to this book, but it wasn't anything that I was looking to accomplish immediately. So she was like, all right, well, since you have all this content, let's talk. So I started planning with her, and she was gonna be like my publisher, and I honestly don't know how we were gonna work it out because ultimately we ended up not being able to like work together. I feel like at the time she had emailed me in like December of 2019, 20, I don't know. All the pandemic, everything's just like one big month. So she had emailed me and was like, hey, so I'm gonna have to close. It was COVID related, so it had to have been 2020. Yeah. She was like, I'm gonna have to close the doors for the Bulls of Durham. Jesus. girl. So, yeah, she had emailed me that she was going to have to close the doors. And I was like, oh, cool. I sold 8 copies of this book, and now I don't know how this is going to become a thing.
Yeah.
And literally the next day, I feel like everything for me is just, like, luck and community. They just kind of go together and in ways that, like, you don't think they would work out. So, like, I had signed up for this thing called FISO, Figure Your Shit Out. It's like an accelerator run by Christina Noel. She's in Raleigh.
Yeah.
So, yes, I love Christina. She's the best. So I signed up for FISO, and I met this girl who lives in Canada, and we became, like, fast friends. We were, like, in the same little group. And she introduced me to this other girl that has, like, a feminist book club box. So she was like, hey, maybe you can, like, get some of your, like, marketing materials in the box. And I was like, that's a good idea. Let me reach out to her. So I did that. My box came. So I had, like, a little, like, book mailer, like a little postcard about the book that I had put into all the boxes. It was, like, 1,500 of them that had the date that the book was supposed to come out before Sheila had, like, been like, hey, we're not going to do this together. So I'm just like, oh, God, I already sent out all of this stuff. And I was just, like, super stressed. But it ended up working out to where I got literally the day after I got her email, the next morning, my box arrived. I opened the box, and I had, like, it has, like, a little brochure in there, and she always gives, like, 5% of the proceeds to, like, an organization. So in the brochure, she'll tell you about the organization and all that stuff. And it was a publisher, and I was like, I literally just lost my publisher. Now I'm getting this box that is telling me all about this new publisher. So I was like, let me see if I can get in with them.
Yeah.
So I ended up meeting with that girl, and it took months. So by the time I met with her, she was like, hey, this is actually not a good fit for our, like, new startup publishing company, but I work for this other publisher, and I think you'd be a great fit for them.
Okay.
So she introduced me to my publisher, Wise Inc. So it's just been
a whirlwind, it sounds like.
Literally, girl, that's my whole life story right there. I mean, more or less.
Yeah, that's a lot. Okay. I don't even know where to dig in first.
There's a lot.
I think sometimes when we share our stories, I think it becomes increasingly evident that, like, progress isn't linear, and, like,
at all.
Sometimes we have, like, these checkpoints that, like, we're like, okay, I need to reassess, like, where I am and where I want to be going, and if the things that I'm doing now are preparing me to go in that direction, like, as it stands now. And sometimes that answer is not always yes, and sometimes what to do to, like, kind of course correct is not always, like, easy or, like, ideal or like sexy or fun, or just like, yeah, like, you know, I started this online SaaS and it grew to, you know, 10 million MRR, and this is what we're doing. And it's like, it takes
not my story at all. Not even close to my story. My story is like all over the place.
But I mean, it's real. It's like we have these moments where we have to, like, check in and, like, realizing that, like, seasons are going to change, we're going to change, directions are going to change, and, like, our priorities in life are going to change. And I don't know. Sometimes it's not easy to hear or even easy to admit that, like, I was doing these things for the wrong reasons. Like, I was doing this to prove that I could do it, not necessarily because this is what I wanted to do, or it's serving me having the life that I want as in reality. You know what I'm saying? Like, I haven't, I've been doing the same thing for the same reason for so long. It's taken me a minute to step back and say, like, this isn't actually serving me. And if it's not serving me, it's definitely not serving my clients. And so when you had, like, that kind of, like, moment, like, okay, I need to, like, do something different. I need to course correct. I need to find, like, my tribe of people who are going to support me and, like, do things for the reasons that, like, make me happy and cause me to have the life that I want to live. Like, what was that feeling like, or, like, how long did it take for you to really accept that? Like, how long did it take you to, like, start moving in that direction? Because sometimes we don't listen to ourselves. Like,
you're correct. Well, I'm the kind of person, I think, because there's a lot that my brain just was trying to unpack. So I'm the kind of person that will just, like, take the steps. I'm like, okay, Aspiring Co., that's the name. Let me buy the domain. So once I did that, I was like, all right, this is now done, but I have this other website over here on WordPress. I have no idea how to, literally that's how I started my started doing websites, because it was out of need for myself. I was like, I can't afford to pay someone however much it's going to be. I probably could have, because I was still working full time, but I didn't want to. So I was like, let me figure out. I had taken like web design classes in college, so like it was not something that was completely foreign. But I was like, you know what, I can figure this out by myself. So I did that. And then I was like, oh, this is something I can now do for other people, because it's a thing that people need. But had I not taken that shift, I wouldn't be designing websites for people.
Right.
I would probably still be doing like print design and like random stuff. But yeah, it really just came from like a necessity for me to be able to create this thing for myself. And I think once I realized that I was doing it out of spite, it was probably like maybe like a month. I was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I remember I went to like HQ in Raleigh with my dad, and I had him just like film me just like talking about the change. And I mean, honestly, I don't even know what we did with that video, but we did it. I just knew that it didn't feel right to me anymore, and I wanted something that was 100% mine. And also knowing that I had started with someone that I'm not on speaking terms with, and you know, like it was like, I think she had done the logo for our first thing. I was like, I don't want anything to do with that. Like I want everything to be like all on mine, or just like something that I can claim for myself, that like I built this thing.
Right.
So ending up like having to change everything over and just like really just committing to it. I'm just like, if I have an idea, I'll buy the domain immediately, because it's just like, now that it's like a step I'm taking in the right direction to making this a real thing.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, like just taking those small steps instead of thinking like, wow, this is this massive undertaking that I have to do in 2 days. It's like, okay, I can start small. Like, what are some of the immediate things that I would need to make this a viable option for me to like actually explore and like realize and stuff like that. And domain, I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm slow to buy a domain name. I bought the first one pretty quickly-ish. And then like, ish, like, I don't know, like maybe after like 4 months, so that maybe not as quick actually, but, and then even like my name, like you were like, Angela, why don't you have your own name, like domain, like, I don't know.
But also I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if I'm getting like not a ton of money from like my clients, because that was a whole other thing, like I wanted to be like an affordable designer. That was like my biggest like mission. I was like, I didn't want to be something that people could not I wanted to be like the everyday person's designer, or like small business owner, specifically like minority owned businesses. So I just like so if I get money from like a project, the majority of that is going to like a different business idea that I have that is just like, so I'll immediately just like buy a domain. I'm like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Let me just buy this. So that's like the first thing I do. And then sometimes I'll make a website, but usually I'll just buy the domain and just like have it sitting there for when I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
I've done that. I probably have like maybe like 8 or 9 domains.
Jesus Christ, girl.
Yes. I have a lot of them.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, because like I get an idea and I'm like, we're going to move forward with this at some point. I don't want someone else to take it before I can take it.
That's fair. Yeah. 9 though? Okay. So
I have a lot.
So moving on to the book. So I feel like the book is actually kind of the perfect culmination between like the media and design aspects of your brand, because the Dream Chasers book, almost finished, which is almost finished and almost coming out.
Oh, right? Girl. Yeah, that's the whole other thing. When we did our little debrief earlier, I forgot to tell you. Anyway, yes, okay. We're making progress.
Okay. So Almost Finished is the name of the book.
Yes.
And she has interviewed like all these women over the course of years, and she was designing the book based on those interviews and stuff. So I'm really excited to see it come to life. But, you know, that is where, like, again, like, you took a leap. You did a Kickstarter. You, like, I know, you did all the things. Do you want to tell them
recommend.
Oh, goodness. Tell them about your Kickstarter, like, campaign experience.
Hey, that's how we met. That's so fun. Oh, my goodness. The fact that I just had that light bulb go off, I was like, wow, full circle here.
It is.
Yeah, so the Kickstarter, that was, I just knew that the process was going to be mad expensive. That's all I knew. It was like, and I mean, I had the quotes from my publisher But when you go the indie publisher route, it's like you're paying for everything. Like you're doing each step. So basically it's like I'm self-publishing, but with the wisdom of like people that have done this before, and they have like their own teams and experts and experiences. But yeah, I just knew it was going to be mad expensive, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this. So I knew that the Kickstarter had to come, and it needed to be like pretty soon in the process, because I knew that like the bills were going to start racking up. And I mean, I probably could have made it a little bit longer without the Kickstarter, just because I was just like, everything I do is like I work and then I pour it all into like business ideas, which is probably not the wisest thing to do. I'm no one's financial advisor though, so it's just the way that I live my life. So yeah, I had reached out to some friends. It was really important to me to, you know how Beyonce only works with women? Maybe you don't know that. If you're obsessed with Beyonce the way I am.
I'm not obsessed, but okay. I've noticed the trend, yes.
Yes, she only works with women. And so I've always been like really intentional about that, and just like making sure that like the people that I'm pulling in for projects are like, you know, I want my money to go to people that I feel like, you know, like it's feeding into the same community. So I was like, I need a videographer for this Kickstarter thing, and I was like, I didn't know who to call. So I asked my friends on social media. I was like, hey, can y'all just send me some videographers? I had like one friend that I knew could do it, and I had reached out to her also. But then when you came, I was like, going with Angela, because Black woman. So,
damn.
I mean, well, if we're being honest,
yeah. I mean, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, it's just like I try to be really intentional about, you know, the community that I work with, and just like making sure that we're all kind of like feeding into each other. So I was like, okay, going with Angela. So yeah, we met. You're probably like, this girl's insane. Probably not too much different than this. And then we just filmed a video, which at the time I had no concept for the Kickstarter. I had no clue where anything was going. I just knew I had to get this part done. So once I had the video, I was like, all right, well, that's like, now this is done. I don't have to think about that. I knew that would be like the most taxing part of the Kickstarter, which in hindsight, the whole thing is very taxing, to be quite honest. Yeah. But I think the thing that was probably the hardest was just like knowing, first of all, having to ask for help, and then being okay with receiving help. Like that was, which you think is like, obviously, girl, you're going to have to ask for help, but not in the, like, you don't think of it in the way that you actually, it's very vulnerable. You're like, hey, texting your friends, like, hey, don't forget, or like reaching out to all kinds of people that I probably haven't talked to in a long time, be like, hey, I'm doing this Kickstarter. So you really just have to lean on your community. I feel like that has been like the biggest lesson of everything I've ever accomplished.
Yeah. You mentioned something about, yes, community, but also just like realizing that, you know, being intentional is really important in your work, and like, you know, your intentions have subconsciously or consciously always been like investing in creating original work. Like client work is great, like that pays the bills, but at the end of the day, it's still just like a client, you know, and you can be passionate about that, but you know, there's a difference between like creating work for someone in the way that they want you to create something, and creating something for yourself and putting that out into the world on your own terms. So it's like, while the Kickstarter may have been hard, but it's like you have autonomy on how you did that process. Like you could have gone about that a couple different ways, but that's how you decided to do it. It was like by the community, for the community type deal. And I love that. And I think people that bought into the Kickstarter, myself included, are going to love the book, because that's kind of like the theme that you went into it with,
yeah,
right?
I wanted it to be very much like a collective effort.
Yeah.
So I feel like the whole time I was like, y'all, we're doing this book thing. Yeah. I'm the one giving birth to it, but it's like a whole, everyone's taking care of the baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really important to me. I think for everything, I've always been the kind of person that's just like very communal. I don't think I'm selfish or anything. I just am always thinking about other people. Sometimes, often to my detriment, actually. Like I'll prioritize other people and their needs. That's therapy. We don't need to go into that, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I always have been focused on just like everybody, making sure everybody is on the same page.
Yeah, I think honestly, like one thing that I will say that I love about women business owners, women leaders, women creators, women entrepreneurs, whatever you want to call it, women nonprofit founders, is like they're always relationship driven. They're always going to think about like, how can I save this relationship? How can I enhance this relationship? How can I begin this relationship on a good note? How can I extend this relationship and grow this relationship? That's all. We're very relationship oriented, right?
Definitely.
Whereas I think men, while they may have partners, they may have people they collaborate with, at the end of the day, they're like, what do I need?
Yeah, this is me.
Yeah, this is my me. Yes. This is my project.
Yes.
This is my book, right? This is my business, and not like, how can I give back and bring people in a way that is safe and welcoming and inclusive. And so, like, how do I say this nicely? Like, when we, I'm trying to say this nicely, like when we think about like how we approach business, how we approach pricing, how we approach creating and having creative autonomy on our own terms, like, what are some like pieces of advice that you would give people, again, like you've already talked about, like being okay asking and receiving help, but also like what are some other things that you've learned in being so community oriented, but also having to like protect yourself, because you can't give so much that you have nothing.
Right.
You have to have boundaries. And so like, what are some ways that you've worked to establish them? I know that's a hard question, and sometimes boundaries are fluid because sometimes we'll be breaking them, but
the thing is, I am literally the worst when it comes to boundaries. It's just not something that I'm good at protecting and really like holding people to. And it's something that I'm actively like, I'm aware of, I'm trying to get better and like work through. So yeah, boundaries, that is like a hole. Now my brain is like going down that rabbit hole.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So, yeah, I think just, this is probably, I think is an important note to add to the community focus. It's kind of hard because sometimes you'll have people that are like, oh, well, that's not the way that I do things. I'm like, all right, well, cool. You keep doing it your way. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing over here. Right. It's just always been, I think also because Aspiring Co., there was no revenue stream for like literally the longest. So like I think I maybe added t-shirts maybe in like 2016. And that was, again, before it was Aspiring Co. So it was just free content, like, hey, come get inspired. Like there was no like paywall or anything, like here, just like just getting all this content out. So to me, it was more of like a, hey, I've served you, thank you, and now let's like kind of like bounce off of each other. So I think that has been like part of the reason why I was more okay with being like more of a community focused project. But like I said, some people are like, oh, well, I would have just reached out to like organizations, had them pay for the whole thing. And I'm like, well, that's cool if that's what you want to do. That's just not the approach that I'm going to take ever.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's very important. Like Crowns and Hops, and people who have been watching probably have already figured out that I really like beer, and I'm obsessed with Crowns and Hops, which is a black-owned brewery out in LA. But they did an equity crowdfund. So they did it not through Kickstarter, obviously, through a different like platform. But basically they're like, yeah, we could go to investors. We could, like, there's plenty of rich black people who would probably love to give to us, but that's not the only way we want to receive money. You know what I'm saying? Like, we want to give our community the opportunity to invest in us at whatever level they feel comfortable with, right? And I think there's just something to be said in understanding that, like, organizations, investors, people, they can, angel investors, they can give you money. There's no problem. But like, at the end of the day, you still need to like sell things. Like, you still need to have community buy-in in order to be successful. And I think like that is kind of like that missing middle between like, I'm just going to bootstrap this thing and do it on my own through client work, or the other extreme, which is like, I'm going to get VC or angel investment, versus like, how can I also like make money? Yes, but also like bring people in and allow them to have not necessarily like ownership if you don't want to do an equity crowdfund, but just like feel as though they're
like a part of the process. Exactly. Yeah, and that's something that was really important to me, especially because this book is a book of interviews. It's not me talking about my life. Thank the Lord. First of all, no one wants that. Second of all, it's a book about bringing all these different people together of all different walks of life. So it was important to me to reflect that in every part of the process as much as I could. And sometimes I feel like I make decisions and I'm just led by my intuition. It's not, sometimes I don't even think about it. It's just like, this is just what I'm doing.
Right.
So that's the way that my intuition kind of led me, and it all kind of aligns.
Yeah. I feel like you're the first person who said that. Like, I feel like some people have really defined decision-making processes.
Nope.
And then some people are just like, this is what feels right. This is what I'm doing. And like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I straddle between both of them. Sometimes it's like, I get so deep into like analysis paralysis that like sometimes things just don't happen, and it's like I can't allow that to continue.
I honestly
sometimes.
wish I had more of an analytical brain, because I just truly do not. So I can't even pretend. So I'm just very much led by intuition and just by like my gut feelings about things, and I'm just such a creative right brain person. I literally can't function like if I tried to. I think when I was younger, I was probably a little bit better at like balancing the two. But as I got older, I was just like, I'm good on. I feel like a lot of that is like, education systems and like if you don't have teachers that you feel like are relatable and things like that. I feel like all of my teachers that I hated were math teachers.
That explains a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. They were all math teachers. I had one good math teacher in college, one. And I feel like that was because he was neurodivergent and he just broke things down in a different way. So I really liked him. But yeah, my brain has just always been like super wired to like more of the creative stuff now.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like I was the opposite. Like I came out like very analytical, like very much like things need to have like a reason and all these type of things. But I was also like terrible with money, so there had to be a balance, right? Like I couldn't just like shoot from the hip all the time, and be like, oh, I want this new piece of camera gear, and it's like, where'd all my money go that I earned? Like I can't keep doing this. Like this isn't sustainable. So I think it had to balance itself out. It's like, man, like when I was being, I would say more intuitive and more impulsive, like it wasn't financially viable to keep doing that. So I had to like meet in the middle somewhere. I don't know where I'm at now, because
I mean, we take it day by day, hour by hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't even pretend to be like any way other than how I am. It's just, I mean, it would be an obvious lie to everyone.
But that's okay, though. I think that's what makes it better. I think that's why Aspiring Co is still here today, because you're like, this is who I am, this is how I'm going to do things, and this is what works for me. And, like, you just keep doing that, and opportunities keep coming, and, like, that's just kind of how life goes.
Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Like, you say you put in all this work that was free, and it's like, a lot of creators can probably relate to that, like, like a lot of YouTubers, a lot of podcasters. Like, it's like, you're not paying me to do this. Like, I want to do this because I'm passionate about it. So when it comes time to like, okay, I need to make money, like I don't feel bad. And like, also having that delineation, like I'm happy to do things for free. It's not that I'm not passionate enough to do things for free, but it's also like, I want to make a living and be able to eat.
You have to be able to balance. Yeah, I think, I was definitely inspired by like the Issa Rae's of the world.
Yes.
Because I mean, Issa has had so many web series that were. I mean, I would imagine you can probably still watch them now. I have no idea, but
you can watch Awkward Black Girl. I'm not sure about the first one. So there's one.
Fly Guys. That was one of them too. Yeah. So I mean, I study Issa, and the thing is, I was in college when all of this stuff was like popping off. So I was able to just really focus on her career and the trajectory of it. But not just her, Kid Fury too, from The Read, and The Read's doing all kinds of amazing things, but everything that he started doing was on YouTube, just like free, just like talking to people and doing like comedy stuff. So I think just like watching it be possible for like them, I was like, well, if I just stay the course, just keep my focus and stay consistent, I can, eventually hopefully get to maybe just an ounce, just touch the garment. I'm a whole goofball. I was like, maybe I could aspire towards that.
Yeah. I just also want to say that Crowns and Hobbs was at the kickoff for Insecure Season 5. I just want to put that out there. Beer was there, and I was so jealous that they got a picture with her.
Oh, I just love Issa so much.
I know. I feel like there are definitely like the Issas and the Ava DuVernays, and I'm just like, yes, like absolutely could see like this is the life that I could see in some way. Like, what I'm saying? Like that creative path and freedom that they have. But then I also get inspired by like brewers. I get inspired by farmers. I get inspired by like people who can keep plants alive. I don't know. I just get inspired by like different types of people that are not maybe in this industry, but are also just like creating their own path and stuff like that. So there's definitely something to be said for like putting in that time, putting in that work that is free, and then getting that reward. But
Yes.
like, yeah.
And I mean, this has been quite a long journey, which I feel like I've recently come to like the reckoning that like I interviewed my first woman. She was a fashion designer in 2010. It is 2022.
Yeah, 12 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah.
And it was never in any official capacity. It was just like, hey, I think you're cool. Can I talk about that with you? And we just see what happens from there. And also just like really putting myself out there, which that is something that I'm actually really grateful for my business, because if I didn't have Aspiring Co, I probably would not be as comfortable talking to strangers on the internet, because that's how I got here. Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely, I don't know. I'm very introverted. Very, very introverted. I have had no problem this pandemic staying my behind in the house, honey. Let me tell you. It's been glorious for me. I had no problems doing that. But, like, I don't know. Definitely, like, I didn't start going to networking events until I moved here. And so that's a whole different thing of, like, going to work every day, and then after work going to a networking event, going home, take a shower, eat, wake up, do it all over again. And that was, like, my grind for, like, 3 months. So I definitely worked up, like, my ability to speak to people and, like, get to know people and like pitch myself.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten rusty because of the pandemic.
I have no desire to get unrusty at this point.
I mean, I feel like at this, I need to get better. I used to feel like it was no problem. I could just be like, oh yeah, I do this, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, they're like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, good question. I don't know.
Yeah, like telling your story like takes practice. And
yes.
like you have to really get better, and like as you grow and mature and change and stuff like that. But
and then as your story continues to evolve and change, you have to add new elements and still be clear enough to people so they don't get confused and they know like what you and your brand is about.
Yeah, I don't know. There's definitely something to be said for like the confidence that like having a business for a long time will give you. So I'm definitely thankful for that. I don't know. Anyways, I think that's a good note to end on. Can you tell people where to find you?
Oh, yes. I am a lovely _DAE, a lovely day, on Instagram, Twitter, on all the things. Website, alovelyday.com, all that stuff. But then I also have Aspiring Co, which is aspiring_co on everything. And then the book is... It'll be out sometime this year, so that's all I can tell you. It'll be out in 2022. Yeah. I am aiming for September, but I don't know. September might be further than the timeline, or I don't know. We'll see. It'll be out this year. It's called Almost Finished, 75 Dream Chasers on Building Legacy, Taking Risk, and Giving Grace.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.